Hey everyone, so I'm just putting this video out outside of the normal schedule. It's actually a video about schedules and the sort of projects I've been working on, so it will go out under a title of something like channel information or channel update. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the template I'm going to use going forward, for the moment at least, and what I've been working on in the background, because some people that watch some of the programming videos may well be interested in this sort of side project I've been working on where I had to scratch an itch. I'll get onto that in a moment. That's what this side of the screen is. But first of all, I'll just talk about the rough sort of scheduling template and how it's working at the moment, and into the new year at the very least. But I've already started to plan out actually beyond that. So the observant of you may notice there is a sort of, what would you call it, a pattern behind releases of videos, and it falls into this repeating pattern here. So over the course of 3 weeks, I shoot 2 sets of 6, for want of a better word, call them series. So we have Reasons and Resources, Scryfall Shenanigans, a music related thing, This Old Deck, My Life in Objects stroke Muse, so that's another video musing on video, and then 15 cards, which can be sometimes a booster pack, can sometimes be, or generally is often me going through my oh dear me, what's the word? My binders, that's it, another B word. So you'll notice here that I release Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday now. So with 6 different types of videos, that's why you get this repeating 3-week framework. So 6 videos take basically a week and a half of slots, and then repeat those types of videos again, and we're out for another week and a half, so 3 weeks in total. In terms of the types of categories, I always try and do this thing where I do want to put out like 3 Magic the Gathering videos out in the course of the 6 videos. So over the course of 6 videos, half of the videos will always be about Magic the Gathering, and then the other half will be about something else. So at the moment, Reason Resources is mainly concerned with coding, and that will be the case going forward. So I always expect that slot to be some sort of coding video. Now we've got Magic the Gathering, and if you can see an example here, so for a coding one, it might be something like talking about Reasons and Resources for learning Java. Magic the Gathering video, Scryfall Shenanigans, I'm going to do one on owls. Music related, I'm working through various years at the moment, so there's going to definitely be a 1994 one at some point. Album release is 1994. This Old Deck, which I know is pretty popular with a number of people that watch the channel, a number of friends of the channel, and I've got sort of interest with new people subscribing as a result of me doing this series. So I've got one on a type of deck called Black Ice coming up. Then My Life in Objects, I'm going to carry on through going through some of my singles, going to look at some stuff, Judas Priest singles. And then 15 cards episode, we've got, definitely there's going to be one on Domineer Remastered, because I've got some packs left of that. And then it repeats again, but with different things. So Kotlin Charms, 1980, Permafrost from the Ice Age block, other random singles. So I've now exhausted my singles collection, and no doubt in the future, as has been requested, I think I'm probably going to do some of my albums. And then for a 15 cards video, I've got some Dollarama repacks as well still kicking around, so I'll do those. And then at some point, obviously, I'll do the going through the binders thing. So that's that. How the schedule is going to work going forward for the moment, for the rest of the year and into the new year. But already I'm getting ideas for switching up a little bit of the Magic the Gathering content for some of these once it runs its course, so to speak. And I know I've mentioned things like Cube and various other things in the comments. So yeah, watch out for stuff like that and how I sort of integrate it into either existing videos or just do a new mini series. So then we move on to this other project that I've been working on, which is not necessarily, it's indirectly related to my content on my YouTube channel. As I've alluded to on several videos now, I was greatly impressed by this book. So much so, I decided to do a little side project, which wasn't necessarily going to result in YouTube content, but as it happens did, because that's where the Reasons and Resources series was born out of, really. And it's at the moment it's following through the different languages that are covered in the book, and then once they're covered, it goes into the shorter chat where these are mentioned, like the classics. I'm going to do some Reasons and Resources videos on those as well. In this part of the book, if you're curious about the book, you can see these sections are not very large. The meat and potato of the book is the starting chapter, then the ones on individual languages, and then towards the end this sort of final concepts chapter on here. Now, as I was starting to read the book, I needed some creative output, but I didn't necessarily want to do training content outside of just these Reasons and Resources. The content I wanted to do on the channel was more inspirational. It's like, well, if you're interested in this language, this is where I would start. That's not to say I won't do training videos in languages later, but at the moment, that's not where my interest is. My interest is more lying in resources for learning languages that are already out there. So as a consequence, I did need some creative outlet for that, and I needed something to experiment. So this is where I came up with this programming polyglot. I've just put it together very simply on WordPress. I didn't want to necessarily purchase a domain and create websites. I mean, I did stuff like that years ago, and it was fun to do, to have, a complete self-functioning, self-contained website, using Apache and MySQL and PHP, those sorts of things, and then also have a independently hosted WordPress site which uses the open source code from WordPress and does it independently of WordPress.com. I've done all that as an experiment, and so this I just wanted to keep it really simple. And as I've got here, as I got chat, or what's it called now, Copilot, to sort of help me word this. This website is a labour of love, and it's born out of this fascination I've got with this programming language explorations book and other books on what's called comparative programming languages. I think that's the sort of domain that it fits into. And if you aren't familiar with the term polyglot, then basically, look it up. It's to do with, it started out with when applied to just languages generally, not specifically programming languages, but having an interest in how languages relate to another and the sort of structural side of languages, those sort of interests. How is this language different from another language, and you can apply that to programming languages. So that's why I've used the term programming polyglot. You can use terms like polyglot programmer or whatever, but I just settled for that. And as I tumbled this idea around in my head, I thought, it'd be really interesting to really do a proper deep dive into Copilot and see what it's capable of doing and how I can leverage it. Because it's one thing to speculate and me to kick the tires and do, as part of that, adventures in Bing Chat or adventures in Copilot, I suppose, as it would be called now if I was doing it now. But it's quite something else to actually go, let's just go for it. And create a series of questions, which at some point I will divulge what prompts I've been using at the moment, but the website's still under development, so I'm going to keep that under wraps. It's not complicated what I'm using to do this, but there's just a set of prompts that I've been using for this. So as I sort of reflect on the use of Copilot in coding, but also the development of training materials, and my own sort of journey over the years, I started work in 81, and all the stuff I did around materials then was really as an adjunct. So I worked in a lab. We had to prepare official documents, training documents, standard operating procedures. So I've always been involved in some form of document preparation over the years. Over the years, that morphed into much more instructional materials, and also doing things like writing document preparation stuff for use in quality control, those sort of things. So it's changed, the output's changed, and the sort of domains I've been working in change. But it always has been this need to create materials of some description. And I would say from a certain period, most of it was instructional materials. And then later on, that was for college lecturers working various corporate roles. I haven't specifically mentioned all the times I was self-employed, but that factors in as well, where I was preparing, stuff for in-house work, but I was actually doing it externally. And, you can probably appreciate the amount of effort that has to go into creating that content manually. You sit there for like weeks, weeks or even months on end, chiseling away at these materials. So I thought, well, why not just see how far I can ride this with Copilot? So, this is the idea, to be fully transparent about this. So I am leaning heavily into Copilot here. And so what I did, I thought, well, let's just create this website of content, and I'm going to use it as basically a teaching tool for myself. But why not just put it out there? And if people want to look at it, they can. It's intended as a living document. I'll be continuously adding new programming languages and updating the content that I've already got up there as I reflect on insights and developments. So if I spot something is seriously wrong, or, I've tested all the code so far and everything's working fine, not surprisingly. But there's obviously certain instances where some of the stuff isn't going to behave the same on everybody's system, because there's some additional steps for a few examples to do with certain libraries and stuff that has to be set up. But most of this I've been actually able to do using online resources that allow you to run code on the web without having to install anything locally. And I would say probably 90% of the code, probably even more than that, runs quite fine on those things. And where it doesn't, it's really obvious, because I've often got sections that say things like, in order to do this, you're going to have to add this to a YAML file, or you're going to have to do this, or you run this at the command line. And then it becomes obvious, that you can't be doing this online. But equally, if you've got the programming language installed, then you could do it on your machine as well. So, but I wanted to try and put as much code, or do as much code so it was runnable on the web. And as I build the site out, I'll be including additional external site links out. But I didn't want to do that in the early days, because then it just gives the people a way of not going through the site, if you know what I mean. So while I'm building it out a little bit, there's going to be very few external links apart from to Copilot and a few other things. As it says, the material here is designed to spark interest in study of programming language rather than provide extensive training program for each individual language. As such, it's recommended for those already familiar with a couple of programming languages. You don't have to be if you just want to read it, but it does help a little bit. Looking to expand their knowledge and explore new paradigms. So I've kept it really simple. There's not a lot of cross-linking going on, just because I know how hard that is in the early days to try and keep together. So at the moment, it's very much page orientated. There's not any cross-linking really within the pages at the moment. It's just you can get to the main page by clicking on the banner up here, and then you just click on any of these languages. These are in the order that they are in the book. and then I'm going to add on more as I go along. I probably am going to go out a little bit of order in the languages that are covered in shorter sections, simply because I'm really keen to do about 3 of the main sort of beam languages. So that being Erlang, is it Elm, and then Gleam at some point. But I don't know when that's going to be. I just wanted to get these done and out. So the book starts off with Lua. So I've got a little about Lua here. Then we've got binding and scope in Lua, functions and closures in Lua, frames and argument passing, prototypes and classes, extensions. I've done this old school. This is just so nostalgic for me, because when I started using computers, well, actually it was more like this. I don't know if you can see what I'm highlighting here, more like that. But then over time, the school I was at could afford to buy green screens, and then when I was also doing biological sciences at college and chemistry at college, alongside working, the computers there were by then green screen, and that was considered quite a big deal, having a green screen computer in those days, the Commodore PETs that were green screen. So at the moment, I've just for nostalgia reasons, and I know it probably annoys a lot of people, I actually find this really easy to read like this. I don't know what it is, but it just... And I may change the spacing on some of this as well. I mean, you can probably see, this is how I've sort of indicated the comments. Some of the things in here are explicit explanations. Some of it is just implicit in the way stuff's laid out, and you just sort of get to realise, oh yeah, I can see what's going on there. Operators, control flow, matching, where is it? What's next? Yeah. Type systems, type inference, immutability, persistent structures, processes and threads, messaging, synchronization, pointers and garbage collection, metaprogramming, and that's it. And back to the grid. So you can get back to the grid from here, but this is always up there. It scrolls sort of, that stays at the top all the time. So very easy to get back to this page. That's the idea. So I don't plan on having a lot of cross-linking within the site. And what you'll notice is as you go to different languages, same stuff is covered. So it does get a little bit repetitive, but that was the point when I was putting this together. I wanted that repetitiveness because I wanted to be able to go, okay, if I'm thinking about, TypeScript, like where are the commonalities between the two, say that and Lua when I look at things like binding and scope. So that's roughly how it's laid out. Now you'll notice I don't specifically have anything about data structures at the moment. And the reason behind that is I've been sticking really strictly when I was doing this. I needed to nail this down because I knew if I didn't, the way my mind works, I would go off all sorts of rabbit holes. So I needed a framework, and I decided this would be my framework. Language and concepts as it is in the book. Binding and scope, function closures, frames, arg processing, prototypes, classes, extension dispatch, operators, control flow, matching, type systems, type inference, immutability, persistent structures, processing threads, messaging, synchronization, pointers, garbage, metaprogramming. However, because of the things it covers, indirectly it does talk about data structures. So you will see lists being mentioned, you will see dictionaries being mentioned, but there isn't a specific thing at the moment on the concept of data structures. I am planning on adding some extra things to each section of my own sort of concepts I want to consider. So data structures will, be in there, I suspect, at some point in the future, as will be error catching as well. That's not specifically mentioned in here. It's sometimes got picked up in control flow intermittently when I was using Copilot, but I decided to take that out for the moment because it wasn't happening consistently. So how much of this is generated by Copilot? Well, an awful lot of it. What I did was basically cleaned it up and tested the code. So I cleaned it up, tested the code, did some highlighting, made sure it made sense. I did do some editing to take out repetitiveness in certain places where I didn't think it would really help. And I didn't necessarily modify for overall consistency beyond, as I've said, taking out a few random references here or there, or maybe I had to corral it into certain areas, particularly when I was doing things about frames. It went off on a couple of side tangents and I had to corral it on a couple of languages. But apart from that, and times when it got the code wrong and caused an error, those were the only changes. And that was the whole point of the exercise, and why I'm being so transparent about it. But of course, over time, this will be edited, because I have worked out a sort of schedule for doing that. So, did all the summaries, did the first draft and edit, which is what you see now. I've got to do, and as I was doing the edit, I was sort of also doing a review, but this is the first. I've got to do like a first standalone review where I literally go through everything really a second pass, more than just a first. It sounds like a first pass, but it's more of a second pass, because I was actually, as part of the editing process, I was reviewing what I was doing as I was going along, but I was doing it as I was drafting, as opposed to a formal review all the way through. That's not part of the edit, that's not part of the drafting. So that's the plan next. But I just wanted to get this out there so people knew about it already and could sort of see the stuff in real time. As I said, it's a living document. So anyway, there we go. That's all I really wanted to talk about. So yeah, here's the video schedule. That's not been affected by this project at all. I have all this nicely scheduled up in a time in the week, or days of the week, where this is always scheduled to happen. And going forward, I'm going to schedule a day in the week to do this, to add to it in different ways. At the moment, for the last 3 weeks, I've been concentrating a lot on this actually, but I won't be doing that going forward. I'm done with getting the bulk thing up and running, which needed for me to concentrate for 3 weeks. And in the meantime, I was also able to put out content preemptively. So there's stuff out there, not this stuff, but stuff that I've already shot and is ready to go. And you'll be pleased to know that the usual, if you haven't already seen me mention in the comment section, we'll have the usual Land Ahoy episode, the usual Yuletide. Around about the 21st, that will drop, 21st of December. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future video.